Shalom and good day all, this is Tiki1129 back again for another indie comic review, and for the indie comic review I'll be covering Robert Kirkman's Firepower, Greg Pak's Mech Cadets, next issue or issue 6, and last but not least Frank Miller's issue 6 of Ronin Volume 2 or Book 2, issue 6. I'll now get things organised for the first one that I'll be covering. So as we finally move into the finale of Firepower, if I were to say one thing, I think this would be one incredible, I guess, compendium, omnibus. Should it all come out with every issue in one particular omnibus, that I would probably be interested in collecting, especially if it's trade paperback. So moving into first things first, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? I'd have to say it definitely does, to which I give it an 8 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we have a look around the beginning, middle and of course the end. Seeing that there's a lot to cover in this particular story, I'm going to do my best to sort of like cover, I guess, the parts that stand out in the story as we have a look around the beginning, middle and end, just to address the art. So let's get started. So as we start to move into the beginning of the story, we have had a bit of a change in the character of Owen, that he's now no longer using like his original fireballs, to which he, or basically his Hadokens in a sort of way, against the dragon, and where before he sort of like had, I guess, more of a red one, the color has changed. So there's been something that has changed between this issue and the last issue that has affected his firepower input. And of course, we see him and his family, including Doug. I forget this, the daughter's name, and also the mother's name. So as the story advances, we do get a bit of a fight between, I think it's one of the masters, that was possessed, and sort of like the one that was possessed now goes up against Owen and his family. Of course, Doug himself tries to intervene to help his father, only for the situation to change. And then, of course, last but not least, we move towards the end of the story, to which we get a 15-year time skip, and we end up catching up with Owen and his family, who are now living basically at the temple, to which they have practically learnt the art of this particular firepower. We also learn that there is also, I think, a granddaughter to which he has. So for the internal art, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Great job, Chris Samney, with the art in this particular series. It's really nice to see you sort of like finish off this story like this. Moving into the area of the story, first things first, considering how far this has gone issue-wise, did we get any comic references to any of the previous issues? No, we didn't. Next is the area of time, to which we mainly got 15 years later, which was towards the end of this particular issue. The location we got of mainly Chicago being brought up, but they should have actually brought up the location of the temple. That would not have gone astray, especially in regards to the racing of the story. The cast of characters that we know that were in here, we had Master Shaw, Ma Guang. We of course had Owen, Doug, and also one of the dragon, which was sort of like brought to life and brought to cause carnage on Chicago. But for the overall story rating, I think there was some bits with the story where it felt a little bit lackluster, just that bit towards the end. But as we move into the 15-year time jump, I did actually quite like that. The overall story rating I give it is a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed reading through this, and it would be nice to see if we get to maybe see a sequel type story with this. But instead of it focusing on Owen, maybe focusing it more on the kids and what they did. Even if they were, say, for example, done in a couple of one-shots, just to sort of like test the waters. Much like the one-shot that was done with, I'd have to say, issue 0. That I really liked. So let's get things started to moving into the next one that will be reviewed. So as we jump into Mech Cadets issue 6, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? In a lot of essence it does, to which I give a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the internal art as we have a look around the beginning, middle and end, and also what's happening story-wise with the characters. So as we start to move into the beginning of the story, we learn that Olivia Park is in space, and of course, whilst this is occurring, we know that there are some members of some shark, but they, in the process, in previous issues, we have learned that there is sort of like a race that is now starting to align itself with the humans to take on the shark along with the robos. As we start to advance towards the middle of the story, we have fights take place, and last but not least, after all the events with a lot of the fighting, plus also a funeral or two that also take place in this story, we see that one of the generals that's in charge, or one of the people that's actually in charge at this particular base, is seeking to control the shark for their own particular purposes. So it feels like this character might end up turning into, the only way to bring it up, for example, is like an Amanda Waller from DC Comics. But in this case, instead of her being black, this villain is of another ethnicity. So, for the internal art, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the area of the story. First things first, did we get anything time-wise? No, we didn't. Next is location. With one of the locations I managed to get out of the story, we learn about Mars base, and of course what's happening on Earth. Next is the cast of characters, which you see Stanford Yu, Sanchez, Olivia Park, and Franklin. Some of the other names were not brought up, though it would have helped story-wise with the character if we got more of the names of the characters being used in each issue. But for the overall story rating, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to move into Ronin, Book 2, Issue 6. So as we start to move into Frank Miller, does this cover in any way, shape or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? In some essence it does, to which I give a 7.5 out of 10, as I do actually quite like the cover. Moving into the internal art, as we have a look around the beginning, middle, and of course the end. So as the story begins, we end up catching up with the mother of Casey, and we get to see her go through a bit of, it sort of feels like a psychological trauma-causing event. Just the way that this story has been coming across issue by issue. As the story advances towards the middle, we get to see the character of Casey again, as he's doing the best he can to sort of like help his mother against the villain known as Aquarius. Until last but not least, we reach the end, to which they are sort of like free from the bonds of the villain. And in this case, not a Bond villain. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, as I did quite like the art in the story. Next is the area of the story itself. Do we get anything time-wise? No, we don't. Do anything location-wise? No, we don't. The cast of characters, we had Aquarius and Virgo, and it looks like Virgo might actually be a villain too. We had the character of Casey. We also had Captain McKenna. Apart from that, the overall story rating I give this is a 6.5 out of 10, as I felt that the story did fall short in its sort of like last bit of execution. Apart from that, until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.